like class sizes and student to faculty ratio.
The top 5 national universities, Princeton University, Harvard, and a 4-way tie for third between Columbia, MIT, the University of Chicago, and Yale. Meanwhile, Williams College and Amherst lead the list of top liberal arts schools. Bill Rakoff, CBS News.
The Bradley County Sheriff's Office crews worked the scene of a hazmat cleanup on Spring Place Road. Adam Lewis with the Sheriff's Office told WTVC that the crews found a number of chemicals inside the duplex that they originally thought were the makings of a meth lab. But Lewis told the press later, "We don't know what it is, but it's not a meth lab." One person was arrested at the scene.
Fire officials in Northern California say the state's major north-south interstate will stay closed until further notice while crews battle a more than 40,000-acre wildfire. The fire only 5% contained. Fire captain and public information officer Nathan Menth.
Interstate 5 is a huge traffic producer, and the last thing that the incident wants to do, Caltrans and California Highway Patrol, is expose firefighters and citizens to situations where distractions could be leading to vehicle accidents and additionally more fire in the area.
Jonathan Jeans was arrested just 2 days after he was added to the TBI's top 10 most wanted list. The Hardeman County man was wanted for attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and other charges. Reports say he was found in Jackson County by federal marshals and the TBI.
North Korea on Sunday celebrated 70 years of independence with tens of thousands taking part in a revival of the country's mass games. CBS News correspondent Ben Tracy.
More than 100,000 people crammed into the main square in the nation's capital of Pyongyang. They paid homage to their leader, Kim Jong-un. There were battalions of soldiers in goose-step formation. North Korea definitely showed off its military hardware, but perhaps what is most notable is what was not in this parade. North Korea did not parade its intercontinental ballistic missiles as it has done in other parades. That could be a sign that Kim Jong-un is serious about denuclearization, that he wants to negotiate with President Trump.
3 cars collided on Southmore Road Sunday afternoon. Firefighters rushed to pull a man out of one of the crumpled cars. His vehicle plunged down a 15-foot embankment. Another car crashed into a nearby home. Reports indicate nobody else was seriously injured, but the damage to the vehicles and the property is going to be costly.
California wants to try something new to tackle the problem of gun violence. The new rules could take effect this year. More from CBS's Vicki Barker.
Pending new rules will limit online sales of ammunition, require ammo sellers to have licenses, and make all bullets traceable to their purchaser. The New York Times says the idea is that the best gun control is through bullet control. Critics argue the new rules effectively criminalize law-abiding gun owners, but backers note laws already on the books have helped nab dozens of gang members, sex offenders, and other criminals, and removed hundreds of illegal guns from circulation. Vicki Barker, CBS News.
He used to be a successful software company owner. Now he's a drug addict behind bars. An Athens, Tennessee man, Leslie Webb, was charged by the feds in a methamphetamine ring sting. The federal complaint says he was involved in meth trafficking. This isn't his first rodeo either. Back in 2015, he was sentenced to over 4 years in prison on federal drug charges. At the time, he was quoted as saying, "I made the mistake of my life."
The Trump administration is closing the office of the Palestinian representation in Washington. CBS News correspondent Cami McCormick has the latest on the stalled Mideast peace process.
A senior Palestinian official has confirmed the Trump administration is closing the Palestinian office. He calls it punishment. Congress had authorized closing the PLO office if peace negotiations with Israel weren't ongoing. The Palestinians refused to participate in U.S.-led peace efforts after President Trump moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem.
Chattanooga cops arrested a man after neighbors say they got into a fight over a parking space. This happened on Kirby Avenue near North Shore. The suspect allegedly threatened to kill everyone there. When officers arrived, they say they found a rifle in a garbage can, which the suspect, Mr. Michael Curtis, allegedly said was holding for a friend of his. The problem is Mr. Curtis is a convicted felon. He was arrested and charged with multiple charges, including aggravated domestic assault and unlawful possession of a firearm.
The East Coast bracing for the impact of Hurricane Florence, as is the U.S. military.
I'm Cami McCormick at the Pentagon. The U.S. Navy has ordered its ships in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia to move to Condition Bravo. That warning order is set when destructive weather conditions are expected within 48 hours. An official says the forecast for destructive winds and tidal surge are too great to keep ships in port.
Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7.
And Val St. John for Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7. Action News now.
Chattanooga Morning News with Russ and Val. Weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Nooga Radio 92.7 FM.
Radio, Chattanooga weather.
Today, lots of clouds with a few scattered showers moving off to the south and east through your afternoon. High staying into the upper 70s. Tonight, a little milder lows, mid-60s. For Tuesday, some clouds, but mainly dry. Highs into the lower 80s with more sunshine and warmer weather for the midweek. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily. Locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm Sourcine 12 Chief Meteorologist Patch Report.
Radio 92.7.
Let's face it, Old Faithful isn't as faithful as it used to be. Constant repairs are a hassle and can rack up quick and money and time. Landers McClarty Ford can fix that. Right now, you can get a 2016 Ford Focus, 34,000 miles, only $11,491. A 2017 Chevy Spark with only 17,000 miles for less than $12,000. A 2015 Volkswagen Jetta with less than 21,000 miles for $11,991. Yeah, browse their entire inventory of new and new-to-you cars, trucks, and SUVs online at LandersMcCartyFord@FortPayne.com. Landers McClarty Ford of Fort Payne. If you can't find your next perfect ride, they'll go find it for you. Big city selection, small town prices, friendly service, and top dollar for your trade. The savings are waiting and only a short drive away, so what are you waiting for? Get started with your personalized shopping today at Landers.
WPLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga.
Serving Chattanooga.
Broadcasting live from the center of the universe, the Tennessee Valley's most listened to news talk station.
Chattanooga Radio 92.7.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Zoom Video Conferencing.
I'm Steve Kathan.
Get ready now.
North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper urging action. Hurricane Florence is still a few days away from the East Coast, but it's now a Category 4 storm, packing top winds of 130 miles an hour.
Florence is a threat well beyond our coast. So inland counties need to be ready as well.
I'm Jim Crisula in North Carolina. Jared Compton is among the millions in the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic getting ready for Florence. He's already been to the store to stock up.
You know, in the long run, I'd rather just be prepared. That way, the last few days, I can more worry about preparing my house if we do take a hit.
Weather forecasters are warning the storm could stall and dump disastrous amounts of rain in the Carolinas, Virginia, and West Virginia.
In Dallas, a white police officer is facing a manslaughter charge. Last week, she walked into what she says she thought was her apartment. It wasn't, and she shot and killed the black man who lived there. DA Faith Johnson will present evidence to a grand jury.
I have full confidence in my investigators, my staff, that we will get to the bottom of everything.
The attorney for the victim says justice has been slow.
That person was able to leave Botham's home, return to her home, and not face any consequence for 3 days after he was killed.
CBS stock is down more than 2% today in the wake of Les Moonves' departure as chairman. He denies sex misconduct allegations. The company says an investigation will determine if he'll get his multi-million-dollar severance. Media expert Robert Thompson says Moonves' ouster marks the end of an era.
Les Moonves was not just a television executive. He was almost a household name. I'd put him through the history of the medium up there with Fred Silverman, Brandon Tartikoff, names that really penetrated the culture.
In Northern California, officials have reopened a 45-mile stretch of Interstate 5. It had been closed the last 6 days because of a wildfire. That fire is 5% contained. It's burned 64 square miles of timber and brush. A Georgia charter school sent a form home to parents advising of a new optional corporal punishment policy. A third of the parents who responded said that was okay with them. Superintendent Jody Bolino.
In this school, we take discipline very seriously. There was a time where corporal punishment was kind of the norm in school, and you didn't have the problems that you have.
Well, parents who don't sign off on paddling at that school in Hephzibah, Georgia, will see their kids, if they misbehave, face suspensions. Wall Street right now, the Dow is down 45 points. This is CBS News.
Zoom Video Conferencing, featuring video and audio clarity with screen sharing. Free accounts are available at Zoom.us. That's Zoom.us. Zoom Video Conferencing.
The following call is real. It took place between an OnStar advisor and a member.
OnStar emergency. Is anyone hurt?
quick thinking. I will quickly contact 911 and I bring my partner on the line as I do so. Go ahead, Simona. Tell me exactly what happened. It just went over. Oh my God. I can't get out. Stay calm and listen carefully so that I can help you get out. I'll tell you exactly what to do next.
At a moment like this, the last thing you want to be is alone.
Can you open a rear side window all the way? Yes. Okay, do that. Can you turn your radio all the way up so that you can still hear me? Yes. Okay, get out of the car. Get to the top of the vehicle.
A specially trained advisor is ready to help 24 hours a day.
Okay, I'm at the top. They help us en route to your location.
The reassuring sound of a human voice, ready to help. OnStar is available on Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, and Cadillac. OnStar. Be safe out there. OnStar acts as a link to emergency services. Visit OnStar.com for details.
It's World Suicide Prevention Day. CBS's Peter King looks at what some researchers are up to.
For decades, suicide research has been based on simpler concepts like blaming depression, but conventional approaches have often come up short. Florida State University psychologist Jessica Ribeiro is part of a team using artificial intelligence to crunch data.
To be able to develop what are called risk algorithms that can potentially better get at the complexity that's underlying suicide risk.
Via Skype, Ribeiro says using what she calls machine learning can help make more sense of behavioral patterns and connect the dots to improve the chances of prevention from a coin flip to perhaps 90%. Peter King, CBS News, Orlando.
In Atlantic City last night, Miss New York, Nia Franklin, won the first Miss America competition without a swimsuit segment. She says she's glad that part of the event was removed. It allowed her to eat a little more. Steve Kathan, CBS News.
Let's talk about sleep.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
A Sequatchie County shooting left one man dead, another one arrested. Deputies say they found 21-year-old Logan Shepard bloodied halfway in a ditch on Henson Gap Road on Saturday. Their suspect, or was reportedly already on scene, Paul Kaufman Jr., arrested shortly after Mr. Leopard's death in the ER. Reports say he fired a 9mm handgun multiple times. In Chattanooga on Wheeler Avenue, a man was shot multiple times. First responders say his injuries were not life-threatening. He was rushed to Erlanger to recover. The police are working to find who did it. A juvenile was killed and 2 adults seriously injured after a 2-car collision on Shorttail Springs Road. Hamilton County deputies say it happened Saturday afternoon when a Hyundai and a VW slammed into each other, then careened into trees. Drivers of both cars hospitalized, 1 juvenile killed in that wreck. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, talking 92.7 Action News now.
We had lots of clouds with a few scattered showers moving off to the south and east for your afternoon. High staying into the upper 70s. Tonight, a little milder lows, mid-60s. For Tuesday, some clouds, but mainly dry. Highs into the lower 80s with more sunshine and warmer weather for the midweek. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily. Locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm Sourcine 12 Chief Meteorologist Max Report.
Radio 92.7.
Do you hear that? That, my friend, is not what you're thinking. That is the new 2018 Indian Chieftain Dark Horse. Yeah, Indian. Indian motorcycle is more than a bike. It's an experience, an American icon. And Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga is the only place you'll find their new 2018 line. Are you ready to ride? Join the club. Go to Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga. Just look for the sign, 153 and Amnicola. Indian Motorcycle, the true American original.
Join We've Got You Covered with Scott Schrader every Saturday from 10 to 11 on Nooga Radio. From finance to fixtures, we discuss everything you need to know about buying or owning a home, the pitfalls, the perks, and everything in between. Saturday mornings, 10 to 11, right here on Nooga Radio.
If you want to discover the real hope for your life through inspirational music, relevant messages, and testimonies from others who have already found hope, then we encourage you to visit the 2nd annual My Hope Conference, October 7th through 9th at Hickson First Baptist Church. Free admission and childcare is provided for kids up to pre-K, while those in kindergarten through 5th grade will attend the Kids Hope Rally. For more info, visit myhopeconference.com or call Hickson First Baptist Church at 423-877-2467.
Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Toulis.
We are trying to figure out what it is that makes a society less rich, the people in it less happy, less productive. What are the obstacles toward prosperity and more widespread entrepreneurship, more capitalization, that is to say, more wealth in the society? Not necessarily money, because wealth is well beyond just money, but money is one way of measuring wealth. And where are the obstacles to the expansion of local economy and the free market? Right here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where you, my listener, are Hamilton County, maybe points beyond. We do have a terrific signal that reaches out about 65 miles. So when I say Chattanooga, what I mean really is your town and your place. And that applies to you too. Even if you are on the interstate, just going through the ridge cut right now on your way to Atlanta from a far place, or you're heading toward Nashville and you're passing through Chattanooga, and you do it routinely and have the providential benefit of finding my program on live real radio here at 92.7 FM. What are the obstacles? Well, one main obstacle is you might say, the verticalization of the economy, where you have people, because of special favors, can be above other people and better than other people. And of course, it's not just a matter of measured as happening in the economy, but in culture and society in general. How is it that some people have a special permission to do something that other people can't? The activity in question is given to the great party, right? The benefited party, by licensing, some kind of license or permit. And if you don't have the permit and you don't have the license, well, then you simply can't do it. So what's happened whenever there's a licensing regime created, let's say for the buying of metals at a metals junk shop or a metals junkyard, relatively new law requires that people who buy metals have to get driver's license information or state issued ID information from a seller, or they can't make the purchase, or they can't make the trade between the trailer full of metal pieces and green rectangles, the dollars that the seller has come to obtain, right, with his load of recyclable metals. You have to have a special permit to do that, and you're regulated in the interest, of course, of preventing theft. There's always some public welfare interest in every licensing scheme that we have. But those licensing systems, while they may offer some seeming benefit and sometimes some real benefits, have a deep downside also here on the David Toulis Show. And it's this: they are inherently discriminatory. They discriminate. They make it lawful for man A to buy and sell wine in a certain way, and they make it illegal, either a civil offense, a tort, or a crime, for man B to do the same. And these licensing schemes all across our landscape here in the Chattanooga area, in Georgia and Alabama, in all 50 states have become corrupted. And there have risen in these states. I know here in Tennessee, they've risen despite constitutional provisions that prohibit and ban what are called monopolies. And monopolies, when you look at the case law in Tennessee on monopolies under that provision of the Constitution, you'll see there is a lot in the court's rulings about perpetuities and bequeathals. For example, a man dies and leaves a bequeathal to a university or a park to a city. There are quite a few cases that deal with that question. But the larger issue in that provisional Constitution at Article 22, it's in the Bill of Rights. It's a Bill of Right that there shall be no monopolies. They are often, what has happened is that the monopolies are eventually state. They are the state itself becoming a cartel. And that's why I, your host here at 92.7 Nuga Radio, talk about commercial government, because commercial government has slipped past the original intent in the Constitution at many points. And one of them is slipping past this section 22. It says that perpetuities and monopolies are contrary to the genius of a free state and shall not be allowed. So that if we have a free state, you don't have monopolies. You don't have cartels. And my argument today on the program, on the show, in which I really want you to contribute, is on you might say on this point. And there are 6 reforms that we need to make in Chattanooga, and they need to start right here. Now, Saturday, there was an event at Lincoln Park, and among those there with a little tent and a table were people who are fighting the cash bail sin. Okay, it is a sin to have cash bail. It is a cash bail is in the Constitution, but I think the word is reasonable. There should be reasonable cash bail. And the purpose of cash bail has been forgotten. It has been entirely forgotten. And hundreds of people right now are in jail, not having been convicted. About 66% in the hellhole downtown, an award-winning hellhole downtown, are there pre-trial. That means to say they can't afford the bail. And there's a sign. If you can see a picture of this, Marie Mott took the picture and posted it at Marie Mott on Facebook, on FB, the Great Censor. It got through. The photograph says, "I believe in ending cash bail because ... ellipses," and then there are some bits of smaller writing where people have said something about it. Well, cash bail has created a cartel. It created a monopoly, and that's the cash bail industry, which is a fractionally reserve operated industry. I believe, I have not done the reporting on this, but I believe that it is an industry that does not operate with 100% reserves, but in a fractional reserve manner, which means that the cash bail companies don't have to actually give the county the money for the bond. They don't actually pay the bond, but they do take a 10% fee from the poor inmate and his poor family who've scrounged together money here and there and even gotten a payday loan to get the brother out so he doesn't lose his job. He's been in there for a week and he's about to lose his job. And if he doesn't show up for work tomorrow, he is fired. Okay, and he's a poor man, rides around in an old car, lives in a shabby apartment, has very little savings, and he's got a girlfriend, and they have 2 children together. Okay, that's his domestic situation, his domestic tranquil bliss. Okay, and he's going to lose his job. So there's been in that, because of that lack of reform in Chattanooga, we have a cash bail industry. Which is a lawful industry. It's a legal industry, and it serves a market purpose. Okay, but all industries, when you have a cartel economics, when you have a non-free, state-centered, commercial form of government, all kinds of industries arrive to provide service to the master, right? The client, and the client is the state itself. And the machinery, you might say, the oil, the lubricant, are the lives of people who need the special service, right? The people who need to have a service. If you're in jail, you need to have the phone available. So, well, guess what? You're going to spend a very steep few minutes on the phone, and some skimming economy corporate actor providing a lawful legal service in a free market, right, is going to be making good money. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining about capitalism. I'm not complaining about the idea of free enterprise. You can be a shyster running a fine business, and you're skimming off of suffering, right? You're making a profit off of suffering, but that's you have to make a profit to have a business, so there's no fault there. But the whole question is, how did this system arrive in the first place? The jail system and the prison system. Well, they arrived because of abuses, injustice. And there are six areas of reform. And the people at Lincoln Park Saturday, if you can see a picture of this at Nuganomics.com today. Also, there's a picture from last week of Mark Gravitt, the new Register of Deeds, chatting with Keila Jackson, with whom I went to visit Mr. Gravitt. And the purpose was to say, Mark, I'm going to be putting into your records a public deed. And the public deed is the one that I have done by filing transportation administrative notice. And that notice is something that Keila Jackson thinks she might be able to use in her benefit in in suffering a capital death, not a civil death sentence, not a capital death sentence, a civil death sentence in which the state says you cannot use the roads, you must be poor, you must remain in poverty because you do not have a right to travel on the roads. You have only a privilege of driving, a privilege of operating a motor vehicle, and that's it. And because you do not, it is illegal and a crime to use the road for your own personal private business and for the exercise of your rights, you must remain in poverty. So there's a picture there of her. Not much in the details about Keila Jackson, a writer and a blogger, and I hope you follow my coverage of her ordeal. It is an ordeal for sure. Now, these monopolies are in several forms, but the reforms starting there's 6 reforms we make. 6, right? Six reforms we've got to make. They start with cash bail reform, like Governor Moonbeam Brown signed into legislation, I think Monday a week ago in California. The left has a lot of things wrong, but sometimes the left gets it right, and Christians who think somehow that the left is always to be reacted against, they think they take the other side. They take the other side when, for tactical reasons, sometimes the left will do something right. They'll say something right. What if the left says, well, we are concerned about the lives of black children and we oppose abortion? I bet there are probably thousands of Christian people, conservatives, who would say, whoa, wait a minute. The Democrats are saying they're pro-life. We need to take the other position. We're constantly, as conservatives, constantly reacting, and we are schizophrenic down to the tiniest bone. Okay, we seem to be schizophrenic down to the tiniest bone. Well, cash bail is a major reform that you, my listener, whether you love God or don't care about God, but if you have any interest in justice and the removal of an oppression, that is one. So there is an effort afoot, and there are people working on the short-term reform is a cash bail fund, and that's reform number 2 in my list of 6 reforms for Chattanooga that will make Chattanooga a more just place. And so the cash bail fund is a revolving fund where people put up the money for the poor so that they can get home, prepare for their defense, talk with an attorney, or just look at what they can do to defend themselves and make a living, and not have children at home without the mother, like Diana Watt. She got out on, she was able to pay the bail, or who can't, they're going to lose their jobs if they can't get out. So if 2/3 of the people in Jim Hammond's jail are not convicted, that means they're there under the bail fraud. Okay, bail fraud, effectively an oppression of the poor. And if you're a Christian, there are passages out the wazoo in the Bible about justice. You shall not pervert justice, we read in Deuteronomy 16. For example, I've been going through Deuteronomy because I'm trying to understand, kind of a quick read of Deuteronomy in the past couple of weeks. You shall not show partiality, nor take a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the righteous. You shall follow what is altogether just, that you may live and inherit the land which the Lord your God is giving you. So that land, of course, was that to be occupied from the heathen pagan nations destined for destruction by the children of Israel. But the land today is all the land around. We are, as Christian people, to be working toward redeeming it, buying it back from slavery and servitude, buying it back from fallowness, right? From its being widowed effectively by many industrial capitalist sort of operations, which have made the food bad, made people poor, and the land is fallow. So cash bail reform is the leading reform that Sheriff Jim Hammond knows about. Sheriff Jim Hammond, who won re-election, is aware that this has to happen, and I'm not sure where he is in that process, but the pressure needs to come from him and people who are praying people who read the Bible and come across verses like that and know that they apply to them today, to you, my listener. You pray for the sheriff, but people who aren't praying people, they can say, well, Sheriff Hammond, we do encourage you, bring about cash bail reform. And then the cash bail fund, that's something that capitalists like you, my listener, entrepreneurs like you, my listener, when that thing gets set up, put a couple thousand in, okay? Just put $2,000 in there and the money will be recycled. Well, very few people don't make their court hearing. Okay? Sometimes they don't because they're they can't get there, right? They have an old car and it doesn't work, or some emergency with a child comes up. A child is throwing up one morning when the mom has to go to court. She can't make it. So, things like that happen. And so people they want to be there if they can remember, if they can get their affairs in order to show up for, the time wasting morning or afternoon hearing where they have to wait for several hours before they can have their 30 seconds in the sun. David Tool is here, and the number is 800-8949, 800-8949. That's 800-8949. And the third one is called, and these are at Nuganomics.com. If you want to print this out and ask your pastor about it, please do. Okay. These are ones that we've explored here, and it's called mens rea reform. Now, mens rea, the idea of that is that there cannot be a criminal charge in this country, with a few exceptions, unless there is the allegation of intent. And intent has to be proven in a criminal matter in every element of the charge. And that is something, and that's called mens rea. Now, mens rea is a doctrine, comes from the Bible. It's a common law doctrine, and one convenient place to find it is in Deuteronomy 19, and it's the famous cities of refuge passage. And it talks about the woodsmen, and one of them is swinging an axe. And so the question here is, did the man who swung the axe and the head slippeth from the helve, okay, the head falls off the handle, and lighteth upon his neighbor, it says in the King James, that he die. Well, okay, so you have an accident here, right? The man who did that, well, what is he going to do? He's going to flee to one of the cities of refuge and live, lest the avenger of blood pursue the slayer, while his heart is hot, and overtake him, because the way is long, and slay him. And the question is, in this matter, is, did the man who killed his neighbor hate him in times earlier? Right? Did he then lie in wait for him? In other words, was there intent to kill, or was it an accident? And there are gradations of guilt in accidents, of course. You can have an accident from negligence. You can have an accident from pure providence. And so mens rea reform has to be brought about. And the great effect will be this, that the jail population will be cut by at least half. And police will stop arresting people where they have no clear sense of what the intent of the party, the subject was. If they can't see clear intent in a set of actions that they can put in their report, they will not arrest that person. They may talk to that person, but they will not arrest that person. And why? Because Judge Greenholz and Judge Steelman and the other criminal judge here in Hamilton County will say, well, you can't have anything in your report if there's not mens rea. You got to get to mens rea, the guilty mind to guilty intention angle now. And don't you dare, Neil Pinkston, bring me any more cases where your cops, your fellowship of the finger, don't put the essential element. It's in the law, in the Tennessee law, in Title 39, the essential element of guilty mind. I demand before this court that no cases be brought before me from now on unless you argue guilty mind. Think of how many cases that gets rid of. Think of it. Just think of the relief all across Hamilton County, all across Chattanooga. If mens rea, the doctrine is Latin for guilty mind, if mens rea reform takes place, we don't have to write any new laws for this. We do not have to ask the legislature. We do not have to politic for this. We just have to have judges who say, starting with Judge Sherry Patey in the corporation court, in city court. She is the daytime court judge, and there's Judge Bean in the evening. There is no crime if there is no intent. So clearly that would exclude all kinds of people from being dragged into the police industrial complex who failed to show, right? Failure to appear is not a crime. It is an administrative problem, right? It's not a moral problem. All crime is a moral problem. It's not a moral problem to fail to show up to a court hearing. Okay, it's just not. It is an administrative problem, and maybe that poor person just needs some help. Maybe that person needs a reminder call. Rather than charge the person, the judge should take the effort to say, we're going to create a little office to call people about their hearings. We're going to do them a favor. That is condescension. That would be a mercy. So mens rea reform is the number 3 reform needed in Chattanooga. And I'm talking live on Facebook, and I'm noticing Tracy Arnold, the most inveterate traveling woman in Tennessee is sometimes drops in. She is about to file an important case where a police department in a small Middle Tennessee town stole her and her husband's van because she was using that van at liberty. She was using the van as a free person under her rights, exercising her rights. And the cop stole the van. And so guess what? Title 42, the oppression statute, is going to go into play in Crump, Tennessee. Now, there are three more reforms, and we're going to mention it in God's providence report what they are, but they need to start here. We have a problem with cartels. There's a problem with a licensing economy. And we need to understand that licensing per se, especially when the state is doing it, is almost always detrimental, almost always suppressive of the entrepreneurial capital spirit. David Toulis, Nuga Radio.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
3 cars collided on Southmore Road Sunday afternoon. Firefighters rushing to pull a man from one of the crumpled cars. His vehicle had plunged down a 15-foot embankment. Another car crashed into a nearby home. Reports indicate nobody else seriously injured, but the damage to the vehicles and other property will be costly. Jonathan Jeans captured 2 days after he was added to the TBI's 10 most wanted list. The Hardeman County man was wanted for attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and other charges. Reports say he was found in Jackson County by federal marshals and the TBI. And he used to be a successful software company owner. Now he's a drug addict behind bars. Athens, Tennessee man Leslie Webb charged by the feds in a methamphetamine ring sting. The federal complaint says he was involved in meth trafficking. Back in 2015, he was sentenced to over 4 years in prison on federal drug charges. Belle St. John for Nuga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Let's face it, Old Faithful isn't as faithful as it used to be. Constant repairs are a hassle and can rack up quick and money and time. Landers McClarty Ford can fix that. Right now, you can get a 2016 Ford Focus, 34,000 miles, only $11,491. A 2017 Chevy Spark with only 17,000 miles for less than $12,000. A 2015 Volkswagen Jetta with less than 21,000 miles for $11,991. Yeah, browse their entire inventory of new and new-to-you cars, trucks, and SUVs online at Landers McCarty Ford of FortPayne.com. Landers McClarty Ford of Fort Payne. If you can't find your next perfect ride, they'll go find it for you. Big city selection, small town prices, friendly service, and top dollar for your trade. The savings are waiting and only a short drive away, so what are you waiting for? Get started with your personalized shopping today at Landers McClarty Ford of FortPayne.com.
Nuga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Hello? Who am I speaking with? Eric, you're our winner. Really?
You'll receive tickets for all 3 races between the Camping World Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Monster Energy Cup races.
Holy cow.
In addition, you'll receive a 2-night stay at the Microtel Hotel and restaurant accommodations at 2 area restaurants.
Nuga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Nuga Radio.
92.7.
Your NASCAR racing station. Nuga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Join Nuga Radio and the Gridiron Gang live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks at 10 North on the North Shore. We're talking all things high school football. There's a specialty brew or refresher weekly inspired by the game of the week. Sweet treats, extended hours all season long, and we're pet friendly. Portions of all proceeds support local schools and educational scholarships as well as after-school programs. It's football time in Tennessee. Join us every Thursday live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks, 10 North, your North Shore neighborhood living room.
Your home is a constant work in progress. Repaint the walls? Yeah, easy enough. Leaky faucet? There's a video for that. But roof repair? You might want some help. That's where Chattanooga roofing contractors come in. They have 3 generations of roofing excellence you can count on. Leave the ladder in the garage. Go to chatroofing.com. That's chatroofing.com for Chattanooga Roofing Contractors, a roofing company you can trust.
Cash, 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 and more cash. Get 8.1% return on your money. Rick Davis can turn your cash into real money. Gold and silver bullion. American Eagle Gold. The banks give you a measly 1.9%. At Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds, you'll get 8.1% return on your money. 8.1% return on your money. Wow! whether you're buying an ounce or 100 ounces. Rick guarantees it in writing. 8.1% Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. Brainerd Road, Chattanooga.
Man, you sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I worked with my dad on his truck all the time. Just one more bolt to go.
Yeah, wrong bolt. Today's truck ain't your daddy's truck. For repairs on today's vehicles, you need Amco Transmission and Total Car Care of Chattanooga on Lee Highway. Stay on the road, not in the garage. Amco Transmission on Lee Highway. Get it done the right way. The Thompson Pet way. Yeah, I just put that anywhere.
Join We've Got You Covered with Scott Schrader every Saturday from 10 to 11 on Nooga Radio. From finance to fixtures, we discuss everything you need to know about buying or owning a home, the pitfalls, the perks, and everything in between. Saturday mornings, 10 to 11, right here on Nooga Radio.
Nooga Radio, Chattanooga weather.
We expect lots of clouds with a few scattered showers moving off to the south and east through your afternoon. High staying into the upper 70s. Tonight, a little milder lows mid-60s. For Tuesday, some clouds, but mainly dry. Highs into the lower 80s with more sunshine and warmer weather for the midweek. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily. Locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm Sourcine 12 Chief Meteorologist Max Report.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Toulis.
Do call 800-8949, 800-8949. Call me and tell me about your problem. I like hearing about problems. And the more likely that your problem is shared by others, the longer I will probably let you go on in the detail, because I do care about detail, and I make it a point to listen to people and not to offer suggestions too quickly and too readily, though sometimes that's the temptation if you're in the radio business and you have a live talk show, to keep it moving, to keep it swiftly going. And you are willing and ready to move things along and answer quickly, right? But those are not genuinely helpful to the person who called, though they might be good overall. I have to kind of weigh the individual listener and the particular caller. So do think about that. The number is 800-8949, 800-8949. And the problem that we have in our day is that we have the whole idea of licensing. Licensing, by definition, is discriminatory, because what a licensing regime does when the legislature creates a new privilege, it does it always in one step. It should really do it in two steps, and because doing it in two steps is more honest. The first step would be that we declare the use of the car illegal, for example. But now we're going to let you use your car as a privilege. If you come to ask us for the favor, pay the fees, meet the inspection requirements, etc., meet all of our requirements, then we will grant you the license to do that thing, which we have turned into a crime or something illegal. All licensing schemes are like that, whether they're in the hair braiding field, the medical field, the lawyering field, doctoring. There are innumerable other ones, masseuses, plumbers, contractors. They all have to have the state approval. When in our day we have the rise of the app, that the state necessity is fading. The claim of the state to the need to regulate these areas of the economy, meaning individual people, right, like you, are fading in their compelling weight. They weigh less. They're less reasonable with each passing year. So let's hope and pray for the end of state licensing regimes entirely, especially ones that are falsely imposed. But I'm not talking about those necessarily here, just the main ones. Now, one licensing scheme we have here in Tennessee, even in Hamilton County, is the certificate of need scam. It is essentially a scam. If you want to open a hospital or have an MRI or have some capital intensive equipment or a service, you have to get the state's permission, where the state does not evaluate the market need for a new piece of equipment or a new clinic. It looks rather at the existing services. And if it determines that, well, we have enough MRIs in Chattanooga, and someone's coming in with a dynamic offer in the marketplace, that newcomer may be refused, may be denied in that evaluation process. Again, it's a non-marketplace, and it tends to favor the incumbent, which is to say, licensing schemes always favor the incumbent, and they are often manned or personed, if you will, manned. The commissions are manned by people who are in the trade, barbering trades, hairstylist trades, you name it. They're all the gynecology trade, the podiatrist trade, all with their own peculiar cartel board members who protect the integrity of the industry for the benefit of the public, right? That's always the pretense. Public health, safety, and welfare. Fine. But the app, private means of evaluation are rising in the market. And so by God's providence and the inevitable rise promised in the scriptures of human progress, we know that these state-centered schemes are fading, though with a little help. The Beacon Center in Nashville got passed in the General Assembly a couple of years ago, a sunset rule on all these commissions. They have to sort of justify themselves every year. And the press in Nashville, the Tennessean, for example, doesn't cover this as the capital newspaper. It kind of surprises me. You don't see much about the work of this commission. Now, I bring this up because I'm a member of a health expense sharing Christian ministry called Samaritan Ministries. And I get every month a Christian healthcare newsletter. In fact, I just sent, I haven't sent it, but I wrote a check this morning for $495 for a Texas couple. And when I get home this evening and finish that paperwork, I'll read about what I'm paying for, and send a note of Christian encouragement and a nice card. Jeanette buys me a box of cards every now and then for that purpose, to send well wishes and promise of remembering the sick one or the injured one before the throne of grace, right? The healer in heaven who created us. But in the newsletter that came with the reminder and telling me who I'm sending the money to, there's a report that I'd say is pretty remarkable out of North Carolina. The man in question is Dr. Ginjendra Singh. He is sounds like an Indian, and he has been denied a North Carolina certificate of need. 2 hospitals fought him in the Winston-Salem area for his proposal to put in an MRI and charge not $2,000 for a scan, but $500. So he had a system where he reduced his expenses. And that's what I'm not involved in insurance for health coverage. I'm a member of this profit sharing, cost sharing ministry where we fight for the cash price on every service. We negotiate cash prices on everything. There are medical services that are 700% more than the actual worth in the controlled economy, the controlled unreal world economy, the ideosphere economy of medical reimbursements, where the government brought it all about, and you have national socialism, state socialism in the medical reimbursement field, and also corporate socialism. That's called insurance. Insurance is the same thing, and in many ways, the insurance industry and the modern welfare warfare security state have the same approach, the same identical approach. And you can be sure that in many areas that the government's cartel operations, its commercial government operations, secure the finances of the insurance industry, whether it's automobile insurance or health insurance. And the story is that the Institute for Justice, and I'm waiting to hear back from Justin Wilson from the Institute for Justice in, I think it's Alexandria, Virginia, who's handling a lawsuit in Brunswick County hospitals. Now, the problem is that this kind of licensing operation is a monopoly. It is a state monopoly, and we do not have permission in Tennessee to have any kind of state monopoly or a monopoly. Now, again, the idea of licensing itself creates the machinery for monopoly, even though we are told in Section 22 that perpetuities and monopolies are contrary to the genius of a free state. We have a free state, and yet we have monopolies left and right. The one that's part of my I've got 6 reforms that I'm mentioning today at Nuganomics.com that are all legal in nature, and they're ones that one or two require maybe action in the General Assembly. Maybe we can get Todd Gardenhire to sponsor a bill. But the most important one I want to mention here is Title 55 reform. That is to say, double nickel reform, which is the requirement that every municipal jurisdiction in all of the 95 counties in Tennessee obey Title 55 and stop enforcing it broader than the scope of the statute. And that is to say, stop enforcing commercial statutes upon non-commercial users of the public road. Now, monopolies in the medical field are through the the certificate of need process, but we're told in the Tennessee Code Annotated, we're told that a monopoly, here's the definition from a case that's called Proprietors of Charles River Bridge versus Proprietors of Warren Bridge, 1837. So here's an early definition. And these are valuable because the definitions don't change, right? There may be some details change in outcomes of particular cases, but the definition is this: a monopoly is an exclusive right granted to a few of something which was before of common right. And the number is 800-8949, 800-8949. So call me, brought to you by Nuganomics.com. And I've got 6 reform ideas for Chattanooga. On Nuganomics.com, our sponsor. That website is not popular. Okay, it's not popular, which means that it doesn't have a lot of people going there because most people don't matter. Okay, now you, our listener, are different. Now you tune into the David Tulis Show. Maybe you're going to tune in tomorrow with Marie Mott. So we are the people with a lococentric reform perspective, and so we are. We're here with solutions, not just complaints, but with solutions. And one of them is having litigation against monopolies and cartels, whether lawful, operating within the bounds of a statute, or unlawful, as Sheriff Hammond's Sheriff's Department is operating outside the statute in Title 55. Either way, you have a monopoly that cannot be allowed to stand. It has to be properly challenged. It has to be exposed. And that's what I do here at Nuganomics.com, our chief sponsor. So the story about Dr. Singh is that he is sued. He is suing that so that his practice will not be hamstrung. As a medical doctor, Dr. Singh took an oath to help people in need. Yet the state is standing in his way to protect established medical providers from competition. And that is Renee Flaherty from the Institute for Justice. That's plainly unconstitutional. Now, the North Carolina Constitution, like Tennessee's, prohibits, it outlaws monopolies, and yet that's what we have here. In North Carolina, they're not allowed monopolies or exclusive emoluments, which are privileges to private entities. So this whole idea of a privileged economy is against the concept of what we have in our Tennessee Constitution of a free people. Do call me and let's chat about this. Maybe you've had an encounter with a monopoly. Maybe you've had a disastrous engagement with the enemy, the good people, right? 800-8949, 800-8949. Now, this is David Tulis, and I do want you to make note of a great little event coming up on the 14th of September, the Trail of Tears Memorial Pre-Ride Rally at Crockett Power Sports and Indian Motorcycles of Chattanooga. It's 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. and Nuga Radio 92.7 FM will be broadcasting live there. There'll be vendors, food, and drink. You can gather with your tribe. And it's the silver anniversary of a great event where bikers from across the country gather with the Trail of Tears Memorial Association members and hold a ride to remember the event. So that's a pre-ride rally, 4 o'clock on the 14th. And this is David Tulis, just a couple of days away. Loving your neighbor and buying locally is my argument. And reform in Chattanooga has as essential prospect this Title 55, as I'm mentioning. But I do talk a bit about that, and I've already mentioned it. So I won't say anything more about it, but Title 55 is a local-centric reform, and it begins one jurisdiction at a time, and it might require a lawsuit by a victim, a state actor victim, in that jurisdiction where there has been administrative notice on transportation given, and there are several here in Chattanooga area that I've done. And I'm trying, my efforts this week are to make adjustments on my some affidavits and get the county register to register the deed that I have given this notice. So in Register of Deeds, registers deeds. So a deed would be transfer of land from man A to man B, or David Toulis giving on February 20 transportation administrative notice Tennessee to city council. Those are things that I'm working on for your benefit, David Toulis. And the number is 800-8949. Just ask me, how can you take advantage of an administrative notice? I have a copy in my car. I always have a copy in my car. It's a courtesy copy, right? Because I tend to travel only in jurisdictions in the near area. Don't do much wandering afar. I'm busy working for you here in the local economy, so I don't really travel much. And so I have a courtesy copy of my notice. Why would I have that with me? What would I say with it? Why would I hand it to the officer, et cetera, et cetera? Now, that is a reform number 4. Number 5 would be an expungement ministry. And expungement, with a recent change in Tennessee law, covers more crimes. And it is a ministry because, like the ministry of the gospel, it promises the forgetfulness of God, right? When you learn about Christianity, you learn that God will not count your sins against you, right? He forgives your sins through the sacrifice of the Lord Jesus Christ on the cross for those sins and for you personally. And those sins, which consign you to hell, right? The slightest sin that you ever commit is enough to disfavor you from God and assign you to a place in that furnace where the worm doesn't die. But Christianity promises forgiveness, right? It promises to expunge the record and hold you clean and faultless, garbed in white before God the Father. And so an expungement ministry mimics the whole concept of the Christian message. And this is David Toulis. Caller, thanks for ringing me. What is on your mind?
Hey, David, it's Tracy.
Hey, Tracy.
I was just wanting to call and point out that recently I found under 6 CFR that, the Code of Federal Regulations is implementing, Congress's 49 under transportation. But my problem is Congress seems to be regulating the face of the driver's license, the application for the driver's license, the little barcode on the back of the driver's license. It's regulating how communications between states and the National Driver Register are to be performed. And, given the Ogden talks about, if it not be commerce, then Congress has no concern with it. So I'm kind of confused as to what Congress is regulating if it not be commerce.
All right, so you're telling us that Congress has regulations about innumerable details pertaining to licensure, interstate relations through transportation law, Title 49 of the U.S. Code, and your question is what is your comment? I guess I should ask you, Tracy Arnold. What is your comment?
Well, I guess I'm just not sure how Congress can be regulating the driver's license unless it is interstate or interstate commerce.
And the suggestion is, the suggestion you're making, Tracy, is that Congress doesn't have authority to regulate travel in the states because that's private, but it does have the authority to regulate interstate commerce, right, through the one of the 3 elastic clauses in the Constitution that are very elastic and stretched beyond wild imagination, the Commerce Clause. And so it regulates many things through that clause as pertaining to commerce among the states. And driving certainly is an activity that has in view transportation, the buying and selling of goods among the states. Would you not say?
Right. And if the driver's license isn't intended for interstate or interstate commerce, then I believe that this is, in fact, a resurrection of the Dred Scott decision, and we're all carrying our badges and incidents of slavery. And if we're caught without that license, for mere travel, then we're going to be stopped and seized and taken up, and we're going to have to pay all charges, rising from the, lack of the pass for travel. But Congress can't regulate the, the right to travel or right to liberty, which the Supreme Courts have ruled that, our right to travel is under the right to liberty, which is next to the right to life.
Well, Tracy, do you think that Washington is a greater threat to the right of travel or Nashville in practice? Which one is the greater threat?
I don't know if I understand your question.
Well, we're saying that the Congress, you're suggesting that Congress has many rules regarding transportation and licensures, which pertain to transportation, but not to travel, not to private travel. And so it seems to me that that's not a matter of grave concern to me, since Congress does have authority to regulate interstate commerce. But which is the greater threat to you? You are someone who has traveled privately by van. That's why you lost that van. You were traveling privately, right, and the cops stole your van, and the record service stole your van in the town. The greater threat to liberty is from Nashville and people enforcing Nashville's policies.
Well, actually, I think that Congress and the state legislators, I think they're absolutely correct in everything that they've written. And I think that, the executive branch and the judicial branch are just misapplying the law for, generating revenue, because this is a multi-million or billion-dollar, scheme. So, all this money that's coming from that revolution, I think it goes to pay these judges and these revenue officers or law enforcement officers.
This is David Toulis, and we're talking with Tracy. We'll be right back. David Toulis, hang on. We've got CBS News next, and we're going to hear from a man named Ronnie Palicier. Ronnie Palicier about ATF raid.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Three cars collided on Southmore Road Sunday afternoon. Firefighters rushing to pull a man from one of the crumpled cars. His vehicle had plunged down a 15-foot embankment. Another car crashed into a nearby home. Reports indicate nobody else seriously injured, but the damage to the vehicles and other property will be costly. Jonathan Jeans captured 2 days after he was added to the TBI's 10 most wanted list. The Hardeman County man was wanted for attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and other charges. Reports say he was found in Jackson County by federal marshals and the TBI. And he used to be a successful software company owner. Now he's a drug addict behind bars. Athens, Tennessee man Leslie Webb charged by the feds in a methamphetamine ring sting. The federal complaint says he was involved in meth trafficking. Back in 2015, he was sentenced to over 4 years in prison on federal drug charges. Belle St. John for Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Nooga Radio, Chattanooga weather.
We expect lots of clouds with a few scattered showers moving off to the south and east through your afternoon. High staying into the upper 70s. Tonight, a little milder lows mid-60s. For Tuesday, some clouds, but mainly dry. Highs into the lower 80s with more sunshine and warmer weather for the midweek. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily. Locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm Sourcine 12 Chief Meteorologist Max Report.
Radio 92.7.
My ex recently hacked my email and my social media, and it really caused me some problems. I changed all my passwords, which helped, but I'm still getting trolled, maybe even stalked. I know it's him. I just can't prove it.
My business, well, it's been broken into twice already. I've got cameras, but that only helps after the fact. I'd rather prevent it from happening in the first place.
Unity One East is your solution to these and many other security concerns. With private investigation, security services, and backed by decades of real-life experience in military and law enforcement, Unity One East is your instant contact for security, investigation, and consultation to help protect you your family, and your business. No 1-800 number, no red tape, no wait, because Unity One East is local and available 24/7. Reclaim your peace of mind. Call Unity One East, 475-6206, 475-6206.
Call 423-875-3600 if you're looking to expand your professional look of your business. Then consider the vast opportunities that are available when you locate your office with the Rains Group family. Remember, it's location, location, location. And the Rains Group has the location for your professional office. Check out the spaces for lease at Executive Business Park on the Lee Highway. Small or large, we will be able to suit your needs with the Rains Group. Call 423-875-3600 for the business professionals with the Rains Group.
Hey, dude, check this out. Have you ever seen one so big?
Whoa, look at the size of that.
Look at this little itty-bitty one.
Wow, that's really small.
They have them big, small, and everything in between. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. We're talking about over 40 brands of knives, including Benchmade, WR Case & Sons, Booker, and all the Frost Cutlery brands. Now, Sam, you've been to the cutlery shop. Is it amazing?
Spectacular. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. They have knives, swords, kitchen knives, ammo, and reloading supplies, plus survival gear.
It's the knife shop at Frost Cutlery, open 7 days a week. Hey, girls, you're going to love this. We're going to the knife shop. Hey, let's not tell them they have ammo and loading supplies. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery, open 7 days a week. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives. You're going to love the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. The knife shop.
And tell them David Toulis sent you.
Nuga Radio. Are you brain dead? Still voting for pathetic liberals? Take 3 hours of Sean Hannity from 3 to 6.
Nuga Radio.
Then call us in the morning between 9 and 11.
92.7.
Nuga Radio. WPLZ HD4 Ottawa. W224AZ Chattanooga.
Serving Chattanooga.
Broadcasting live from the center of the universe, the Tennessee Valley's most listened to news talk station.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by ZipRecruiter.
I'm Jim Shanovey. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper wasting no time getting his state ready for Hurricane Florence.
Today, I've asked the president for a disaster declaration on behalf of North Carolina so we can get federal help as soon as possible.
Florence is still days away from landfall, but it's already a Category 4 storm with sustained winds of 130 miles per hour, and it could hit anywhere along the coast of the Carolinas. Ben DeHaven lives in Charleston.
Taping up the windows before throwing boards over them, making sure that the top seals and side seals on the windows are nice and caulked, so I don't got to worry about water dripping in through the top.
Correspondent David Begnaud is in Wilmington, North Carolina.
We are told that people are heeding the warning, going to the grocery store, buying plywood, water, generators, doing things like that. The bottom line is today is the day to start preparing, right? The stores will start to run out if evacuations are ordered. Virginia's saying they could come as early as today.
The case against Dallas police officer Amber Geiger will go to a grand jury. It could decide on more serious charges than manslaughter after she shot and killed a man after she walked into the wrong apartment and thought he was an intruder. DA Faith Johnson.
We are going to unravel whatever we need to unravel. We're going to unturn whatever we need to unturn. And we're going to present a full case to the grand jury of Dallas County.
Les Moonves is out at CBS. The longtime CEO and Hollywood power broker reportedly will receive around $120 million severance, depending on the outcome of an investigation into allegations of harassment. CBS's Nora O'Donnell.
There is no excuse for this alleged behavior. It is systematic and it is pervasive in our culture. And this, I know, is true to the core of my being. Women cannot achieve equality in the workplace or society until there is a reckoning and a taking of responsibility.
The Trump administration warning the International Criminal Court in The Hague with sanctions if it proceeds with an investigation into alleged war crimes committed by Americans in Afghanistan.
Delivering a broadside against the International Criminal Court, which he called a supranational tribunal operating without the consent of those it claims to govern. National Security Advisor John Bolton threatened the global court's personnel with sanctions if they should target the U.S. or its allies.
We will ban its judges and prosecutors from entering the United States.
Bolton says the ICC has threatened to prosecute alleged American war crimes in Afghanistan, along with the building of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. Stephen Portnoy, CBS News, the White House.
On Wall Street, the Dow is down 25, but the NASDAQ is up 17. This is CBS News.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter's technology finds qualified candidates for businesses of all sizes. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free.
When working at a growing business, you wear many hats. The new business hat, the buying toner for the copy machine hat, the sifting through tons of resumes hat. You can throw away that last hat thanks to Indeed.com. When posting your job, Indeed lets you add screener questions that give you a less time-consuming route to your short list of qualified candidates. So go ahead, dust off that extra long lunch hat. Hiring's better when you've got your short list. Save time on hiring when you post a job on Indeed. Get started today at Indeed.com/hire.
Remember when you couldn't order a ride at the press of a button? Or get online without hearing this? Or get Domino's delivered to over 150,000 unexpected outdoor locations? Wait, what? Introducing Domino's Hotspots. You can finally get pizza delivered right to the beach, the quad, or the dog park. Not at home? Not a problem. Find a Domino's Hotspot near you and get 2 medium 2-topping pizzas delivered for $5.99 each. 2-item minimum. Handmade pan pizzas will be extra. Ask for this limited time offer. Prices, participation, delivery area, and charges may vary. Restrictions apply. Visit Domino's.com for details on Domino's Hotspots.
U.S. News and World Report is out with this year's ranking of the nation's best colleges.
The rankings evaluate schools on hundreds of data points using up to 16 measures of academic quality.
Emphasis is on what we call outcomes indicators. So these are things like graduation and retention rates.
Anita Narian is the managing editor for education at U.S. News.
Other factors we look at are faculty resources. So that can include things like class sizes and student to faculty ratio.
The top 5 national universities, Princeton University, Harvard, and a 4-way tie for third between Columbia, MIT, the University of Chicago, and Yale. Meanwhile, Williams College and Amherst lead the list of top liberal arts schools. Bill Rakoff, CBS News.
2 New York State troopers stopped a car outside of Albany and found a 3-year-old girl not in a child safety seat. While one trooper questioned the driver, the 3-year-old showed the other trooper a bag of marijuana and a pipe. The driver and the child's mom both facing charges. Jim Shenevy, CBS News.
Oh, bud, I heard these.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
A Sequatchie County shooting left one man dead, another one arrested. Deputies say they found 21-year-old Logan Shepard bloodied halfway in a ditch on Henson Gap Road on Saturday. Their suspect, or was reportedly already on scene, Paul Kaufman Jr., arrested shortly after Mr. Leopard's death in the ER. Reports say he fired a 9mm handgun multiple times. In Chattanooga on Wheeler Avenue, a man was shot multiple times. First responders say his injuries were not life-threatening. He was rushed to Erlanger to recover. The police are working to find who did it. A juvenile was killed and 2 adults seriously injured after a 2-car collision on Shorttail Springs Road. Hamilton County deputies say it happened Saturday afternoon when a Hyundai and a VW slammed into each other, then careened into trees. Drivers of both cars hospitalized, 1 juvenile killed in that wreck. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, talking 92.7 Action News now.
We've had lots of clouds with a few scattered showers moving off to the south and east through your afternoon. High staying into the upper 70s. Tonight, a little milder lows mid-60s. For Tuesday, some clouds, but mainly dry. Highs into the lower 80s with more sunshine and warmer weather for the midweek. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily. Locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm Soar Sheen 12 Chief Meteorologist Max Report.
Radio 92.7.
Do you hear that? That, my friend, is not what you're thinking. That is the new 2018 Indian Chieftain Dark Horse. Yeah, Indian. Indian motorcycle is more than a bike. It's an experience, an American icon. And Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga is the only place you'll find their new 2018 line. Are you ready to ride? Join the club. Go to Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga. Just look for the sign, 153 and Amnicola. Indian Motorcycle, the true American original.
Join We've Got You Covered with Scott Schrader every Saturday from 10 to 11 on Nooga Radio. From finance to fixtures, we discuss everything you need to know about buying or owning a home, the pitfalls, the perks, and everything in between. Saturday mornings, 10 to 11 right here on Nuga Radio.
If you want to discover the real hope for your life through inspirational music, relevant messages, and testimonies from others who have already found hope, then we encourage you to visit the second annual My Hope Conference, October 7th through 9th at Hickson First Baptist Church. Free admission and childcare is provided for kids up to pre-K, while those in kindergarten through 5th grade will attend the Kids Hope Rally. For more info, visit myhopeconference.com or call Hickson First Baptist Church at 423-877-2467.
Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Toulis.
When we talk about police reform, it's good always to have human flesh and blood paint the picture in a living narrative. And such a narrative took place as we are thinking about police reform. My sixth plank of reform in Chattanooga, that is police reform, the living narrative of the Jesse Parker family, including his son-in-law, Ronnie Palicier. Now, Ronnie is married to the Reverend Parker's daughter, Tamika, who has 6 children. Ronnie has 3 of his own. So in that household where the Paliciers are visiting, there are 6 children, and then Jesse Parker and his wife. Well, did I meet her? Well, anyway, Jesse Parker, and this is a house right near, right between Spring Creek Road and Eastgate Town Center at 5508 Miller Drive. It's a little connector road just as you cross over the interstate from the hospital in East Ridge. You take a right turn there to go over to Eastgate Town Center and the post office over there, or the emissions place, or the Tennessee Valley Federal Credit Union, and you pass by the Jesse Parker house. Now, on the 29th of August, a large number of police officials raided this house. They were members of the U.S. Marshal Service, which hunt fugitives, or who hunt fugitives, and then also ATF, which is the short handle for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives. Is called BATFE now. And then at least one Chattanooga police officer involved in a midnight raid, actually about 2 a.m. raid, in which there were any of 6 children held at gunpoint by weapons that I'm pretty sure were loaded. Semi-automatic and automatic weapons aimed at the faces of very, very young children who were aroused from their beds. Children who will hear their names from their stepdad, Ronnie Palicier. So, Ronnie, tell my listener, just sketch out for us what happened. How you were not in bed with everybody else was sleeping, but you were out in the back, kind of a night owl. What? Just tell my listener what happened and how you came kind of live into the scene, Ronnie Palicier.
Yes, I am what you would call a night owl, due to the fact that for some reason I need about 2 hours of rest and I'm good for the night. I don't really need much sleep. So most of the time, because I find myself being in the household, creating noise and things of that nature because I'm the only one up, I find myself outside, which is where I'm at home at also. So the prior evening around 11 o'clock, I had retired from work. I'd gotten off of work at that time. I worked from home doing Apple support for Apple devices. And I had fallen asleep from watching various of broadcasts on my phone, YouTube videos, things of that nature, things that I'm interested in, basketball highlights, just things to keep me preoccupied and viewing. And once I rose from that slumber, I had immediately started to approach the residents from the backyard because that's where I was. And I, was still kind of foggy from just waking up, but I had saw what time it was on my phone and declared that it was, sufficient of a time for me to go back inside and lay down and get some rest. And as I approached the back side door of the property, where we usually make our entrance and exits, I started noticing, people were there. I didn't really come to a true understanding of what was going on until a gun was pointed at me, telling me to get on my knees.
What happened then? So you're in the parking lot of the house, the parking lot that's shared between your house and the neighbor house, which is an insurance business. What time is this?
That is correct.
What time of night?
It was about, around 2:20 something is what I think I remember seeing, maybe 2:21 on my phone when I had arose from my sleep and saw it on my phone. So, yeah, it was about 2:21.
What was said?
Not much besides get on the ground, stop moving, put my hands behind my head, get on my knees.
What happened then?
Not much. After that, because it was a Chattanooga police officer who pointed his flashlight, which was attached to his pistol, at me. And I kind of snickered or laughed a little bit because I'm used to the police jumping as if my arms are cannons and that my hand is a pistol. And I'm standing there with my hands wide out, looking at him like, you got the flashlight on me. You can see I have no weapons on me. Just have a conversation with me. Let me know what's going on. But, they're not public servants. They're public dictators. So at the end of the day, all I was told was to get on my knees and that they were making their presence known.
What were the officers there to find out? What was the business? What was their business?
What eventually happened was I was placed in handcuffs after I was on my knees on concrete with my hands behind my back after just waking up and not knowing what's really going on. And the ATF agent, who was in basically all green, and he had ATF going across his chest, started to communicate to me about, their purpose of what they were looking for there and why they were there. And he had informed me that, without saying that he was looking for a felon, in a sense, he was more or less saying, we're looking for this guy. So I basically really articulately listened to what people say. And for a moment there, I just didn't even think he was a felon because he hadn't used those terms. He hadn't actually really pinpointed that. But once I had presented to him that I had no idea who this person was, nor knew of his existence, he started to then go into the fact that he was a felon and things of that nature. So I truly do believe that I don't believe what evidence they would have had to believe this, but I truly do believe that, honestly, just because he was black, he assumed I knew him.
Well, ATF is involved in dealing with people with guns and explosives. Did they ask you questions about particular locations, particular crimes, where you had been on certain evenings in recent time? What were the questions they were asking you? And were you Mirandized, Ronnie Palicier?
Well, initially, my instructions on what I've been taught when dealing with the police is, frankly, they're not necessarily there to execute justice. They're there to respond to a hand that told them to go to that location or to go looking for a particular person. So I don't really believe, again, that they had much, if any, evidence to associate me to this person. I don't know if this person had ever resided at that location. Mr. Parker has been at that location for 3 years. So it's just kind of odd, but I did inform them through to my, what I've learned from the police, that I wouldn't be able to really assist them, and I don't feel comfortable having a conversation with them about anything I may or may not know without my lawyer's present. So the tone and the behavior of the police from that moment on basically changed. I do know that they violated by still continuously asking me questions after what the street term would be called lawyered up. But I think that this is what all people go through as far as minorities are concerned. They have a struggle on the inside of them the moment they enter a situation like this. Part of them is saying, no, I'm going to stand up for myself. I did nothing wrong. No one around me did anything wrong. And the other part is just as a provider and a protector for your family, you want to hurry up and get this ordeal over with. So a part of me, kind of collapsed under the pressure of thinking about that for that moment. And so I told him, you're not going to get any kind of cooperation placing someone in handcuffs and they have no idea what's going on. So, I kind of shrugged my shoulders and told him good, in a sense, a gesture of good luck, with that. So I think that's what prompted him to have one of the officers come and take the handcuffs off of me. And he asked if he could go through my phone. I told him I have no problem with going through my phone on my own and allowing him to be a viewer. And so I did just that. And he basically asked me to go to certain sections like my call log and things of that nature. He asked me about a 470 number, which is three of the boys, three of my stepsons, Samir, Tainor, and Tamaj, had basically received cell phones, and Tainor's telephone number actually starts with 470. And that was what he wanted me to prove, that it was his number that started with the 470. And so once he come to that understanding, I would believe that prior to me showing up to the actual scene from the backyard, they were informed of my presence at the property, but they couldn't find me. So that's what allowed the ordeal to continue while I wasn't there. So once I arrived, I think they pieced all the puzzles together to realize that they truly had made a mistake.
So they were at the wrong house.
They
were at the wrong house. We're talking with Ronnie Palicier, who is the son-in-law of Jesse Parker, who's been staying at the Parker household for some time. He's not residing in here, but he's visiting, come a long visit with his wife, Tamika. There are 6 children who are on the scene also. Now, you're telling us about your dealings with the officers and the interrogation, but what did you piece together, set the scene for my listener, Ronnie, about the armed men with their muzzles pointed at the Reverend, who's a public school teacher, been a pastor for 40 years. Also, what happened to him in this raid, and say something about the warrant that was or was not available.
The Reverend Parker is someone who is very unfamiliar with trouble with the law. Since he was a child, or since he was a minor, he hadn't been in trouble with the law in any sort. As you mentioned, he is a reverend of over 40 years, and he just was completely intimidated by the situation. He was being told by the officers there that him and his daughter were going to jail. They were threatened of this several times. And basically his main concern were his grandchildren, which has always been his main concern, and one of those reasons why I love him so much. But he was frightened in every way and intimidated in every way possible to do anything that they requested, because as I stated before, sometimes when you're in this position as a protector, and you have the so-called authorities who supposedly have your best interest in mind, are basically putting you in a very uncomfortable, and not just you, your children and your wife, in a very uncomfortable situation. you basically tend to want to hurry up and get them out of that situation. Even if it does make you look like you didn't mind being involved in that situation, or
and that you granted consent that you granted consent, let's say to search by your by untrammeled consent, genuine consent, as opposed to being buckling under a threat. Well, did your father-in-law buckle under a threat? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what he was under. He was not given any kind of rights that he had, or was told that. He was separated from his daughter, who would have advised him to not sign anything. Just every form of manipulation that can be executed was executed by the so-called authorities. And I believe that's exactly what transpired as far as him signing any, acceptance to having the premises searched. This is exactly why. He was intimidated in every form of fashion. And even mentioning I remember him saying something to the extent that he wouldn't have signed anything if he didn't think he was going to jail.
Which is just bluff and threat. Well, what you haven't done, Ronnie Palicier, is tell my listener about the military nature of this attack in the middle of the night. These are not just plainclothes officers. They are especially equipped to terrorize for their own safety, of course, the people, the denizens of the house. Say something about the use of weapons and whether your children had armed and loaded firearms aimed at their bodies.
Yes, they were. They weren't allowed to have shoes placed on their feet. Tamaya is one of our children that, in a sense, has health issues where she has respiratory issues and things of that nature. The police cared nothing of that. Their agenda came first, overall, even over your well-being. And yes, they had pistols pointed at my wife, who stands about 5'7", and almost every officer there was, morphed her, or basically was a intimidating physical specimen compared to her. And they had bulletproof vests. They had AK-47s. They had, I even want to say, one had on night vision goggles, heat-seeking vision goggles. It was, to me, it was a chance for them to exercise their militarized tools and toys that they barely have much of a reason to pull out in the first place. So this was, I would imagine, as a police officer, I imagine a shootout or a lot of action. And so this was their opportunity to test these toys out, or hopefully place themselves in a situation where they can test these toys out. So, they were extremely militarized. It wasn't even close to being traditional as far as what we're used to from the police or any local level authority figures. So it was, you can understand how if I just woke up out of my slumber and had viewed this, why it took me a second to put things together as to, I work at Apple, and she works as a substitute teacher, and it's a pastor's house. Why are the military here? And it wasn't the military. It was supposedly just the local authorities. But this is what we have to deal with nowadays. They're arming themselves with weapons that surpass anybody.
What are they?
Let alone any civilian that may be a threat.
What are these people afraid of? We're talking with Ronnie Palicier. Ronnie, my question now is, what are they afraid of? Would not just a man who's a fugitive is he's already very vulnerable, and if they are looking for a fugitive, the U.S. Marshals was involved in the raid on your family's house. If they've got the house surrounded and they're all there, why do they have their firearms aimed at children and at women? Jesse Parker, when he opened the door, there was a long gun aimed right in his center mass. He said he didn't know whether it was aiming at his face or his chest, and it was a man not crossing the threshold, but his gun reaching across the threshold into the house and aiming at his center. Jesse Parker. Now, the man with the gun, the police officer with the gun, did not step in the house. Why did he not step in the house, Ronnie Palicier?
Mainly because you've already stepped in horse shit, proverbially, and so it would have been better in his perspective to not violate anyone's civil rights any further, which they have already done. So I believe that they wanted to then go by the book because for some reason they believed they had some true justification. And as unrespectable cowards, they did what I have seen time and time again as a black male in America, where the police will make it your fault for their mistakes.
This is David Phillips, and we're talking with Ronnie Palicier. Hold on. We'll be right back. We've got some important messages. Make sure you support all of our sponsors. We're talking about Nuganomics.com, where you can read the Jesse Parker affidavit. It's the true narrative of what happened from Reverend Parker's perspective. A raid assisted by our noblest and finest blue here in Chattanooga. The name is David Toulis, and we are at 927 FM, and I'll be taking the police class soon. 3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
3 cars collided on Southmore Road Sunday afternoon. Firefighters rushing to pull a man from one of the crumpled cars. His vehicle had plunged down a 15-foot embankment. Another car crashed into a nearby home. Reports indicate nobody else seriously injured, but the damage to the vehicles and other property will be costly. Jonathan Jeans captured 2 days after he was added to the TBI's 10 most wanted list. The Hardeman County man was wanted for attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and other charges. Reports say he was found in Jackson County by federal marshals and the TBI. And he used to be a successful software company owner. Now he's a drug addict behind bars. Athens, Tennessee man Leslie Webb charged by the feds in a methamphetamine ring sting. The federal complaint says he was involved in meth trafficking. Back in 2015, he was sentenced to over 4 years in prison on federal drug charges. Belle St. John for Nuga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Let's face it, Old Faithful isn't as faithful as it used to be. Constant repairs are a hassle and can rack up quick and money and time. Landers McClarty Ford can fix that. Right now, you can get a 2016 Ford Focus, 34,000 miles, only $11,491. A 2017 Chevy Spark with only 17,000 miles for less than $12,000. A 2015 Volkswagen Jetta with less than 21,000 miles for $11,991. Yeah, browse their entire inventory of new and new-to-you cars, trucks, and SUVs online at Landers McCarty Ford at FortPayne.com. Landers McClarty Ford of Fort Payne. If you can't find your next perfect ride, they'll go find it for you. Big city selection, small town prices, friendly service, and top dollar for your trade. The savings are waiting and only a short drive away, so what are you waiting for? Get started with your personalized shopping today at Landers McClarty Ford of FortPayne.com.
Nuga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Hello? Who am I speaking with? Eric, you're our winner.
Really?
You'll receive tickets for all 3 races between the Camping World Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Monster Energy Cup races.
Holy cow.
In addition, you'll receive a 2-night stay at the Microtel Hotel and restaurant accommodations at 2 area restaurants.
Nuga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Nuga Radio.
92.7. Your NASCAR racing station. Nuga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Join Nuga Radio and the Gridiron Gang live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks at 10 North on the North Shore. We're talking all things high school football. There's a specialty brew or refresher weekly inspired by the game of the week. Sweet treats, extended hours all season long, and we're pet friendly. Portions of all proceeds support local schools and educational scholarships as well as after-school programs. It's football time in Tennessee. Join us every Thursday live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks, 10 North, your North Shore neighborhood living room.
Your home is a constant work in progress. Repaint the walls? Yeah, easy enough. Leaky faucet? There's a video for that. But roof repair? You might want some help. That's where Chattanooga roofing contractors come in. They have 3 generations of roofing excellence you can count on. Leave the ladder in the garage. Go to chatroofing.com. That's chatroofing.com for Chattanooga Roofing Contractors, a roofing company you can trust.
Cash, 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 and more cash. Get 8.1% return on your money. Rick Davis can turn your cash into real money. Gold and silver bullion. American Eagle Gold. The banks give you a measly 1.9%. At Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds, you'll get 8.1% return on your money. 8.1% return on your money. Wow! Whether you're buying an ounce or 100 ounces, Rick guarantees it in writing. 8.1% Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. Brainerd Road, Chattanooga.
Man, you sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I worked with my dad on his truck all the time. Just one more bolt to go.
Yeah, wrong bolt. Today's truck ain't your daddy's truck. For repairs on today's vehicles, you need Amco Transmission and Total Car Care of Chattanooga on Lee Highway. Stay on the road, not in the garage. Amco Transmission on Lee Highway. Get it done the right way. The Thompson Pet way. Yeah, I just put that anywhere.
Join We've Got You Covered with Scott Schrader every Saturday from 10 to 11 on Nooga Radio. From finance to fixtures, we discuss everything you need to know about buying or owning a home, the pitfalls, the perks, and everything in between. Saturday mornings, 10 to 11, right here on Nooga Radio.
Nooga Radio, Chattanooga weather.
We expect lots of clouds with a few scattered showers moving off to the south and east for your afternoon. High staying into the upper 70s. Tonight, a little milder lows mid-60s. For Tuesday, some clouds, but mainly dry. Highs into the lower 80s with more sunshine and warmer weather for the midweek. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily. Locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm Sourcine 12 Chief Meteorologist Pat Report.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Toulis.
We're talking with a man whose family members, including young children as young as 5, had firearms, loaded automatic firearms aimed at them for many, many minutes in an hour-long seizure, an hour-long raid assisted by Mayor Andy Burke, a raid conducted by the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Division of the Treasury. I think it's the Treasury Department Division. And his name is Ronnie Palicier. He is in the computer service business. Software and hardware maintenance is his calling. And he's a native of Fort Lauderdale, and works for Concentrix, an Apple contractor. And he was aggressively grilled by officers who were looking for someone quite a different physical specimen than he. He's very tall and lanky. The man saw it, apparently a party he doesn't know, different stature entirely. This is David Toulis, and make sure that you tune in to our Starbucks launch show every Thursday. We've got a program out of 10 North, the Starbucks restaurant there, talking high school sports and their extended hours. And every Thursday night, all season long, it's 10 North on the North Shore. And it's called the Gridiron Gang Show, 7 to 9 p.m. every Thursday. I've been there, but I think this coming Thursday, there'll be the start of the Citizens Police Academy. As far as I can tell, I'm on the roll to get in on that class. It's every Thursday for a couple hours, where the hoi polloi, that is to say, the commoners like me, David Toulis, can find out about this branch serving the executive department in city government. That is to say, Mayor Andy Burke. Now, Ronnie Palicier, tell my listener about this invasion, past midnight invasion of your family's house on August 29, and also particularly what happened to your children. You have 6 children in the house, from Tamir, who's age 13, Tamaj 12. Tynor, age 9, and then there are 3 younger ones, all girls. Say something about how they were treated, and did they realize what was happening when these machine guns and machine pistols were being aimed at them, Ronnie Palicier?
Officially, I want to make sure that I note that I was informed because, again, I didn't arrive to the scene until a little late after the development of the scene was ongoing. And I found out that Tamaj was told from the yelling outside of the house, Tamaj was the one that woke and was the one that went and woke up because he was told by the officers to get, an adult or the owner of the home to come and, to awake him and bring him. And I want people to understand that when the police have sufficient evidence for coming to your property because they've done their due diligence and actually have checked in, maybe even surveillance, or found probable cause to come to your property, their job is to go to the authorities that are above them, such as a judge, to go and present this evidence and have a judge sign an arrest warrant, search warrant, whatever the situation calls for at that time. And this would give them the provocation, or this would provoke them to be able to go to your property, show you a piece of property, whether you signed it or not. I mean, show you a piece of paperwork, warrant, whether you signed it or not, states that they have enough grounds for why they're doing what they're doing. So normally this would mean they would have entered the property on their own. They wouldn't have necessarily need permission to enter the property. So that's the first hint that I had come to derive to, that this wasn't necessarily a proper execution of a warrant because there was none. And whatever they had him sign was to make sure that they had placed it in his mind, Mr. Parker, that is, they had placed it in his mind that he had given permission. So it was another intimidation move to keep him from expressing to anyone else who would be, the appropriate department or people to go and present that this had occurred and find out what he should be able to do about it, which is another sign for me that something wasn't right or some injustice had been executed. As far as my kids are concerned, initially, it in their heads branded me a certain way because, again, the search ended up ultimately being about me until I was discovered and they realized it wasn't about me. They had told my wife, where my kids were right next to her, that I was going by a false name, that I was lying about who I was, that I was involved. This is without knowing who I am. This is what they told my children. I had my children come to me and ask me, what happened? Why? What went on? Now, this is, to me, going to be emotionally scarring for my children. Not only having extremely large guns that they've never seen in their lives, other than on television, pointed at them, they were overhearing the threats from the police. And when you're a child and you think that the police is here to protect you, and you realize, because knowing your grandfather, knowing your mother, and knowing your stepfather, that they follow the rules, they don't break laws, they don't go out of their way to be criminals, it shatters your image of the police. It makes them, I've had Kabir say himself that he was a fool for ever even trusting in the police. And, you know, it's just heartbreaking as a parent to have to explain to your child that even after making the comment of saying there's good police officers, you'll get the response from them, then where are they in this type of situation? I really couldn't even answer that.
Well,
so this goes even deeper than the moment itself. It's going to be something that they're going to carry with them for the rest of their lives.
Well, the idea of a young black man not having had multiple encounters with police officers would be a novelty for me. I ask when I meet, I'm a Caucasian and concerned about abuse, misuse of law against people. And I'm finding in my reporting, Ronnie Palicier, that the victims of this kind of abuse are almost always minorities or poor. And to encounter a young man, let's say in his 20s, you're 36, but a young man in his 20s who's an African American who has had no negative encounters I just haven't met such a person. And I almost always ask this question, even of strangers I'm waiting at the car repair shop waiting room for. I say, well, what kind of encounters have you had with police? And that I get almost a universally bleak report. And what about you? How many? You're in your 30s. You're married. You have children. What kind of? How would you summarize your overall dealings with law enforcement agencies and agents, Ronnie?
It's unfortunate that I can truly say this without hesitation, that I have ran into probably 2 good police officers, and this is outside of the jurisdiction of them executing their services or orders as police officers. So this is the only way that I could come to that summation that they were decent people, because I just knew them personally. Outside of that, I have experiences where I was walking home from Taco Bell, didn't have a vehicle, Taco Bell outfit from head to toe, and there is a minivan full of police officers with bulletproof vests on. It says police on them. They tell me, they just jump out of the van. I'm walking down the street on the sidewalk, broad daylight. They jump out of the van and they tell me to sit on the ground and run my name just to see if I have a warrant. Because the federal government basically enforces these officers to be fruitful. I'm not sure if they have a quota or anything of that sort, but they have to be fruitful. So I would assume that day, about 10, maybe 15 years ago, I just happened to be walking down the street in black at the wrong time. And that's why they stopped me for at least 20 minutes, ran my name, so I had no record or no incidences or no reason for them to really stop me. Give me my ID, not even the only difference of that raid from all the other encounters that I had with police that have always been unwelcoming and unfriendly was I have received an apology from the police officers at that raid. Outside of that, I've never received an apology from the police. They're too busy just executing whatever they're executing or trying to do their jobs. And some people have an issue with accepting responsibility, which is a common theme amongst people, not just police officers in America. But in the long run, I would say that this situation just exemplifies how the police could care less about doing right or wrong. They're going to make sure that they somewhat execute their position, their job, while making sure they cover their behind so they can still provide for their families, no matter if they're taking someone to jail who's innocent or who didn't do it. Their excuse will always be the system isn't perfect. So,
right. They are effectively in the household of Caesar, which is a phrase from one of Paul's letters where he greets those in the household of Caesar. We have a Caesar today, and that is the modern state, and that modern state has many dependents, including police departments and all police families. They are they're in that household. They are sort of servants of the master, and they are very self-interested, and they're very interested in keeping their prerogatives and keeping people afraid. Well, that's something that I would say, but what is your larger analysis? Do we need Does American society, which has been enjoying a reduction in crime for the past 25 years, does the American society continue to need policing, or is there some way in our technological age, in our improved civil life, that we might dispense with them entirely? Are you a supporter of police as a concept, as many black people are, black ministers especially?
Well, I would state it in this term. A lot of great inventions and a lot of great thoughts and ideas have come from accidents. The police do not come from a genuine, hopeful place. They come from the execution of what is called the Emancipation Proclamation. And so prisons didn't exist prior to slaves being set free. And police officers didn't exist prior to slaves being set free. The people who were in charge of keeping the slaves who ran away, they were in charge with bringing back the slaves home. This is where the police came from. They sued the United States government because this was a form of income. They'd go out and find a lost slave, bring him back, and they would be compensated. They would also basically keep track or surveillance the perimeter of several plantations and things of that nature. This is what their job was. So when the government came in with the so-called freeing of the slaves, which was just a transformation from private ownership to public ownership, which was the prison system. So I'm sorry if I'm desecrating anyone.
No, you are exactly correct.
Or belief of Abraham Lincoln. But at the end of the day, the police or patty rollers were really just derived from people who despised slaves and kept them in order for slave owners. And so this is where the police originate from. So I believe that the police, in an ideal perspective or in an ideal world, would be an amazing, basically in a movie, I believe they were called peacekeepers. That would be great if that's what they did. I remember one time stopping, and I don't want to get too far into the story. It's just the point that I said to the police officer. I stopped a crack-addicted addict who just robbed a lady at a dry cleaner. She gave me like $60, something. I refused it at first, but she just persisted. But I stopped him by pushing him while he was running away and standing over him and let him know, because I know I'm a black male and white males are intimidated by me. So he was on the ground and he was intimidated. So he stayed there until the police came and they arrested him. And so the police officer asked me, he was a black police officer at the time, he asked me, why didn't I ever think about becoming the police? And I said directly to him, and I said it more to speak to the him than the police officer him, that I'd rather be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So I would think that one of the main things that would help reform the police is no one can be a police officer if you live outside 3.5 miles of the neighborhood that you are going to be in charge of patrolling. Many other types of reform can come about, but the militarization of people who already don't get enough social training and legal training is exactly the most disastrous thing that can occur, and that's exactly what's happening.
Well, this is David Toulis and Ronnie Palicier. Thank you for chatting with me and my listener. We're talking with Ronnie Palicier, who endured a past midnight police raid August 29th on Miller Road, right near Eastgate Town Center, with his innocent family members, including small children, who had trained upon them machine guns and automatic rifles and shotguns from ATF, the Marshal Service, and Chattanooga police officer. Ronnie, thank you for chatting with me.
No, thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, police reform is something we do want to talk about, and there's a brief post at Nuganomics.com where I offer that as the 6th reform plank here in Chattanooga. We need to have police reform as I don't know. It's at the end, not because it's the least important, but because it is something that is a reform that has to happen. And we are thinking that city council might be the place for it. But Marie Mott, who's my correspondent here at the radio station, and also our wonderful host, be sure to hear Marie tomorrow at 11 in the morning. We are just thinking that the city council, which represents the people, has no impetus, no sense of the deprivation of rights, the offense that the department is causing among people here in Chattanooga, such as Ronnie Palicier. We hear probably 0.05% of cases. That's all we hear about. Some make the paper, some make TV news, but most things that are routine abuse, just routine abuse of Title 55, other statutes, for example, the disorderly conduct statute, which has never been overturned by the bar, is routinely used abusively, though it's impossible to obey that statute. It's a statute impossible to know whether you're obeying it or disobeying it. It has 2 of 5 provisions that are unconstitutionally vague, and it's really unenforceable. And yet it's used regularly by local law enforcement agencies. Police reform is a major reform, and there needs to be, in the next 20 years, let's say, a sense among Christian people that they are unjust. They are part of injustice. And as Ronnie Palicier is telling us, they came truly from slave catching, and then in the post-war era, the maintenance of black people, the supervision of black people, the former slaves now free, right? They were subjected to continuing forms of slavery in the state, no longer private chattel slavery, but state-based slavery, which is where we are. That we have slavery. It is constitutional, but the state is the slave master in the prison system and in the sort of quasi-slave situation of jails and policing, where the bars are extended down the streets and into neighborhoods of largely black people and poor people. Again, it's not entirely a racial issue today, but it is effectively a social management problem, which is attended with many, many evils. And so in the notes today at Nuganomics.com, David Toole is your host here. I propose that there be the main planks would be demilitarization, de-escalation, and one that is perhaps in that same direction, deprofessionalization. In other words, bringing the officer back to be a common person who is a peacekeeper and not a law enforcer. Cops don't have enough training in law, and they are fearful for their lives. Many officers seem to be just great cowards, and they brook no risk. And all risk in the case of death is offloaded onto the citizens. Citizens may perish, but never, ever a cop in an accidental encounter with someone who's armed and dangerous. David Toulis, Nooga Radio. Subscribe to Nuganomics now.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
3 cars collided on Southmore Road Sunday afternoon. Firefighters rushing to pull a man from one of the crumpled cars. His vehicle had plunged down a 15-foot embankment. Another car crashed into a nearby home. Reports indicate nobody else seriously injured, but the damage to the vehicles and other property will be costly. Jonathan Jeans captured 2 days after he was added to the TBI's 10 most wanted list. The Hardeman County man was wanted for attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and other charges. Reports say he was found in Jackson County by federal marshals and the TBI. And he used to be a successful software company owner.